I see anything go, that's not doing anything, right? Just this one right here? This should go, because you're plugged in, right? All right. And just tell me when to start my clock. I'll start when you start.
Go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I especially want to point out Dr. Dunn, chairperson of our board, other board members of the members of the director of boards, excuse me, as well as our esteemed investors. Tonight we're going to talk about an investigation that we conducted into our company regarding the misuse and abuse of company internet. This subject has been a pretty intensive investigation as well as shocking as far as the results that we found. And it will definitely be something that has an impact on how we conduct future business. We're going to start off tonight with Joe, our VP of Customer Service Operations, talking about team member ops. We're going to transition into Ryan, our VP of Information Technology, who's going to talk about IT solutions as well as the costs associated with that. Then we'll move into Alexander, who's going to talk about our HR policies and practices. And then we will move into Christy, who's going to talk about our legal aspects and everything that we do, as well as the issue at hand for being able to solve a future reference. After that, as a CEO, I'm going to give you my perspective on this problem. I'm going to give you some key information relating to the business that we conduct, and then we're going to move into concluding our meeting and hopefully be able to present everyone a solution that will work to solve this problem. With that, turn the floor over to Joe.
All right, thank you very much, Shannon. Hello, everybody. I am the Vice President of Customer Service for our company. Now, a company to begin with, we are a macro-hard corporation. We build computers. We are a straight competitor with Dell, Asus, Acer, similar type of companies. Now, we strive on building the best computers because this industry is a very fierce competition. So how do we do that? We've got to control our efficiency. We need to control our employees' productivity. And best of all, we need to make sure we have the best customer service rep. No one likes dealing with unhelpful customer representatives. So how do I do that? Well, that's my job. I branch out to all our firms and I make sure each manager is handling their employees. I go from the beginning, from the hiring interview process, I move to the policies, and I even do disciplinary action that can consequently be the firing. So what are the goals here? Well, it's always to make big profits. We want to be the biggest. And one way we can do that is just making sure these employees are on task at all entire times. All right, so let me give you a little explanation of how business is conducted in our offices. So we have an international board, we're in many countries, and we have a grand total of about 25,000 employees. So for each firm, we have about a kind of a cubicle type setup. We have an automated system that rotationally goes through each entire employee for customers. The customers will have information brought up to the employee screen, and then that's how the employee, our team member, can help assist them directly and specifically. So this also brings in the concept why we need the internet in our environment. The internet needs to be used for conducting research and finding help with these customers. For instance, let's say that our motherboard would like to be used with a RAM processor, probably from the Dell computer systems. It's important for our employees to be able to pull up the internet, research the different competitors' product, and be able to search for compatibility to see if it's with our motherboards. That's so in doing so, we can be able to help our customers more effectively. So this provides the direct effect of why we need internet in our work environment. However, this will also pose a sort of distraction, more so the internet. Let me explain how I can go into detail about this. Let me throw down a little statistic for everybody. Let's say an employee is visiting one web page, let's say 5 web pages actually, 5 minutes each. That's 30 minutes per day. Now let's take this into perspective. If they do that 30 minutes a day, that's 96 hours logged annually that they are wasting time on the internet. So we are paying about $25 million just to have these employees. And that's only assessing that we have only half of our employees doing this. It could be more, it could be less. So with the general profits that we make around 600 million, we're losing about 25 million of that. And personally, I would like to receive that back, put it back in our company and better ourselves. So we need to implement some sort of solutions to solve this. Working with my IT, we've discussed a couple of the following. First, we want to implement software. We've looked into SpectreSoft and Barracuda. These type of softwares can either be software or hardware setups. These will do active key filterings and making sure that websites cannot be pulled up unless they are related to work. We also will need a dedicated IT staff to help train and help monitor all these sort of filterings that we are being doing. So let's say that this employee is continuously goofing off. We can be able to record that, monitor it. The IT can be able to allow, push that more to the managing office to see who is not doing productive work. We also need to start with revising the company policy. We need to make it inherent that these employees do not have the privacy to go around and goof off on the internet. It needs to be stated that they are on company property and it needs to be used accordingly. Otherwise, in my vision, it'd be considered defacing. We need to employ disciplinary actions, mainly a set process, but it also concurs to the severity of the problem. Let's say that they're doing data sharing. That's a big no-no. They need to be terminated right away, so we can skip the disciplinary process. Also, we also need to address, whether it could be pornography, which happens to be the #1 way to misuse the internet on the job site. Now, that's a severe problem can pose sexual harassment problems. So we need to assess that directly. And it also could be downloading music and stuff, which takes away our bandwidth, and that will, slow down our systems and make work less effective. My last solution would be an installer surveillance type system. This would be sort of a camera setup, so not only we can combat the misuse of the internet on our terminal screens, but we can also combat the use on mobile devices as well. This can also keep a recording of everything, so we can also better that to the employees in weekly reviews and such. So, my proposal, we enter these 3 methods, and I find that these will exceptionally be the most effective way. So we could probably most likely see a 92% reduction, and we are looking at annually $23 million being saved every year.
Thank you, Joe. At this time, I want to open it up to questions from any of the other members of our committee here. Ryan, do you have any questions?
So, you say that you are going to monitor the employees and you will do this with these systems. Which systems did you think that you were most interested in having an IT supply for you?
IT supply. Well, IT supply will keep a firm contact. They'll be updating the Barracuda SpectreSoft software, as we discussed before. These ITs would also be monitoring which employees would be on the internet. Let's see if they're moving off first. So we'd be able to key log that, and then the IT would be able to respond that report back to me, so I can keep a good track and say if they're chronically doing it, or if it's just over the board, maybe once or so.
Yeah, outstanding. Alex, did you have any questions?
Yes, I did. For the monitoring of these different types of surveillance, are they going to be monitored to where it's against their rights? How does that work?
Well, depending on what you mean by against their rights, I think more formally it would be more discussed in the policy, explaining that they don't have their inherent right to privacy. Hopefully you'll be able to go a little more over that into detail. I don't want to keep a firm surveillance, on them all the time, but more in respect every time they're working, let's say when they're on a call, I like the screens to be monitored, the audio to be monitored, and the cameras, be on a 24-hour basis.
Okay, thank you.
Christy, did you have anything?
Yeah, there's a couple legal things, that I see as a potential issue, which we can, discuss later. But I'm just out of curiosity, how are you going to know whether or not an employee is misusing the internet? Is there going to be any type of performance quotas or things like that?
There should be a weekly review, so we can definitely assess that. by a customer satisfaction basis. As I explain, the customer's information will be brought up onto the screen, and that way, once they are done, finished with the employee, a survey can be sent out, something similar, and we can refine the reports. Was our employee helpful or not? We can assess that, we can create averages, span that out within a month period, and we'll be able to recommend quotas for everybody, and we can assess them from there and see if they possibly could be misusing time maybe with the internet with our IT.
Right, thank you.
Joe, this is a very disturbing, the numbers you presented are outrageous and extremely disturbing. What is your personal take on why these employees are doing this?
They feel probably they don't have, fear from their manager probably. They feel, they can get away with it, and that's probably the most apparent reason. They also feel maybe they aren't challenged enough, and you don't push, higher standards to them.
Okay, and I apologize for asking a second question here, but is that something that you plan to implement in your department?
Oh, definitely. I didn't brush up into it completely, but I would also like this as a weekly review for our customers, and that way we can provide them with how much profits need to be generated, where we can see needs of improvement, and then we can also, re-explain to them, hey, if you're misusing the internet, this could take away time from your work, and we explain that to them, we'll just carry on from there to produce more profits.
Okay, thank you. At this time, Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jameson. So, to outline our current goals that the IT section has, I provided this slideshow. The aim is to improve employee productivity and to prevent security breaches between both internal and external by preventing the misuse of the internet, to prevent the invitation of viruses and spyware into our networks, and to prevent the internal sending of the data sharing and potential other internal problems that are produced by access to the internet, where people may discuss and disclose information from work that is not necessarily allowed to be displayed to friends or family. Having discussed that these are our goals in mind, there are several options that we can pursue to ensure that these do not happen. We can pursue our options with client software, which will be installed directly on company computers and will allow for passive monitoring and active web filtering through the computer systems themselves. We will have content controls that can be installed on company servers and via our firewalls that will prevent inappropriate content from being displayed in our company's via our company's web service. And third, we will be able to have hardware options that contain their own software that's packaged within the hardware that will prevent misuse of internet by blocking viruses and spyware, as well as internet web pages that we do not want our employees to be viewing while at work. With InterGuard, SpectreSoft, or Barracuda, which are several options that I reviewed, we would be able to employ any of these potential fixes. The technical side is that there are 4 general ways that you can approach how to prevent misuse of the internet on a technical level, which one would be content scanning, which requires the pages to be downloaded to our servers, and they will be scanned with programs that will check for keywords and ensure that any web pages that have keywords on them that are not allowed will be blocked and not allowed for the employee to be viewing them. An improved version of that is artificial intelligence, which does the same thing, except it also looks for combinations of keywords in order to prevent overblocking or underblocking which is when some keywords that might include words like sexual harassment includes the word sex and would be blocked using regular content scanning, but it would not be blocked through artificial intelligence because the word itself is not necessarily one that we need to be blocking for content. Also, we have the blacklist and the whitelist, which is basically the blacklist in reverse. The blacklist is a database that is precompiled and set up to prevent access to specifically named websites and to prevent the employees from accessing these websites, and these websites will never be displayed to an employee as long as they are using our network. The inverse one is the whitelist, which gives a specific list of options that the employee may view, and all other sites are automatically blocked if they are not part of this list. Finally, there's deep packet analysis, which scans pages based on their HTML content, and if they contain file types that are not permitted to our employees, such as audio or like the Flash views that you might get on like YouTube, then those pages will be blocked automatically. The cost of Spectre 360 is potentially the cheapest out of all of our options at possible cost of $2,250,000 a year. This will provide both passive monitoring for our computers, and it will allow for active web filtering. It will record everything that the employees do on their computers on company time, and it can be configured to allow for whatever internet use we see fit for them. InterGuard does much the same, but can also, for an additional cost, be applied to mobile devices, and it does everything the same as SpectreSoft, except it also covers mobile devices. The Barracuda hardware is another option, but that costs $200,000 upfront for every device that we need to have at every location, and rapidly outprices all of the others past 12 units. So, to conclude, SpectreSoft is the most viable option for our company and the most cost efficient.
Thank you, Ryan. That was definitely some very good information. Joe, did you have any questions for Ryan on that?
Yes, I do. So with the ITs, I plan on hiring to help, promote, keep this company safe, and keep track of who's misusing the internet. How far in advance do you think the training will take in preparation for the ITs to learn the SpectreSoft software and use that?
The learning of the software could be understood within a week of acquiring the software and installing on computers. The IT section would know how to use it and understand it in depth.
I was curious about the software. You were talking a lot about it, and I was wondering why you feel that the software you want to go with is the best.
It provides all of the options that we need that meet all of our goals. It allows for monitoring the employees. It will allow for constant updates on employee performance that we will be able to review, and to promote good employee habits as well as to punish bad employee habits. And it will allow us to do all of this for much cheaper than any of the other options that were viewed.
Okay, thank you.
Christy?
How long do you think it will take to implement this type of software?
It can be done within a month of acquiring the software whenever it is shipped to us.
Okay, thank you.
Outstanding. Certainly the implementation of these types of programs in the hardware, it seems the software is the easier aspect of to go here, especially looking at the budget items. The one thing that I wasn't too clear on the software side, is that going to require increasing your department personnel-wise in order to make this happen?
If we centralize all of our monitoring and all of our data collection, then we could make do with as few as 12 new employees to maintain constant visual confirmation on all of our systems to ensure that everything is working smoothly 24/7.
Okay, so we've got to look at the software and personnel budgets on both sides. Okay, outstanding. At this point, we'll turn it over to the king of HR.
Thank you. Welcome, Board of Directors and esteemed investors. We're here to talk about the misuse of internet in our company. What I'd like to talk about first is my role as HR. My aspect is involved in this entire corporation, from recruiting and job placement to managing performance and promoting good work environment. But the most important thing that we do here in HR is to make sure that the employee and the employer's relationship is harmonious. I have 3 different proposals that we should talk about, one of which is management. We have to have if we have weak managers, they're disrespectful to the employees are disrespectful to the managers. They don't get their job done by the deadline. They aren't feared by the managers. They don't want to do what they have to do. They just do what they can. The misuse of internet is abundant. It goes on and on. They don't want to stop using internet for their own pleasures. As well as our profit margin starts to drop drastically. However, if we have a strong manager in there, respect will be shown because they respect who he is and what he is able to do as the manager. He knows what he's doing, so he's proper for that spot. The deadlines will be made on time. Employees will start to fear the motions or termination process because he knows what he's doing, and if you're doing something wrong, he will lead you to that area of discipline. And ultimately, profit margins will rise. My second proposal is to discuss the international aspects of our company. As an international company, our country, each country's regulations and policies are according to their laws and customs. So we have to realize that not all of our employees will understand everything. Before the beginning of the job, each employee is giving a handbook for each specific job. And I feel that we need to enroll the aspects of amendments towards the laws and regulations to each country. What this will do is give knowledge to the employees, knowing what they can and can't do. The employees will be able to realize that they can speak out to the HR or management, depending on where the situation is, if they feel their rights are violated. And they can know what can and can't be used against them in the termination process. The employees aren't the only ones that benefit from this, but the employers as well. They spend less time in court because they know what they can and can't do, as well as it helps with the margin line of profits. They won't have to spend as much money on settlements as well as losses in court. But it also comes down to easy firing. Since the employees know what they can and can't do, they are able to be fired easily throughout our disciplinary actions, which follows towards whether or not if the severity of this is, if the amount of offenses that they have, performance and productivity on an annual basis. Typically, we have the normal steps taken in the disciplinary actions, which is verbal, written, a formal meeting with HR, management, and the accused. Finally, a performance improvement plan, and lastly, termination, but we require not to do that. We don't require it. we would like not to do that because we want everybody to stay here. Finally, my last spot would be evaluating performance levels and outlining steps of improvement. In every company, we have hard workers and lazy workers. The lazy workers are there just for job security. They want to be able to have something to do the next day. Then we move on to trying to change that, which would be moving a 10% quota up on them. This will help us with the misuse of internet being reduced, as well as helping us save as many employees as we can, since it's costly to rehire new ones. What this will do is reduce misuse of internet, weeds out the unproductive employees, as well as saves on costs for retraining and hiring. The last thing I would like to talk about is upset employees. Typically, with new policies, employees get disgruntled. Everybody can understand that. But we had them sign a contract in the beginning about no inherent policies or privacies. As a policy, we can't have them wanting to change that already. The next thing we have to talk about is we are here to pay for working employees. We can't have people here to work and misuse the internet while they're working for their own leisure. We're here as a business, we're trying to thrive and grow, that has to be it. It's for the best interest of the company. So it's basically what we need to have done. And lastly, if we can't have them follow all of these guidelines and re-sign another contract, we're gonna have to let them go. Thank you for your time, and that's it.
Thank you, Alex. Certainly a strong stance there from the HR department. Joe, do you have any questions?
So Ryan, if these employees aren't agreeing with our policy, do you think we can, instead of, sort of terminating, can we just relocate them? Do you think that'd be a good possibility or whatnot?
Like I said, it depends on the severity of the offense. If it's maybe pornographic or giving away our information, we couldn't keep them around. And it also depends on how they work on the improvement plan and if they're willing to at least try. And if they're not willing to try to change and work with us, then it doesn't matter where we send him, he's gonna stay that way, he or she's gonna stay that way, so we're gonna end up having to fire them either way.
Real quick, you touched on the aspect of the use of fear towards our team members. Is that something that you think is a good idea?
Well, with a mixture of fear and respect, there is a fine line between the two of them. However, if a manager has the ability to strike a little bit of fear as well as have enough respect from their employees, the managing style will just be perfect and we'll be able to grow better.
Okay, thank you. Christy?
All right, thank you so much, Alex. All right, everyone, as you know, I'm Chief Legal Counsel, and I just want to show you a quick video here, which will kind of touch on the business. Now, this video is rated for a mature audience, so the viewer discretion is advised. Thank you so much, Joe, for coming in. We're so excited to have you on your team. We're going to go ahead and go over the orientation. Joe, we've gone over the employee handbook, and one of the things not listed in the employee handbook is our internet use and social media policy. We go by the honor system, and we trust our employees to use that appropriately.
Well, that won't be a problem. Anything, that's me. I love this job.
Alex has handled 48 client calls this week. Brian has handled 49. Joe, only 2 clients. That is way below quota. What is he doing? Joe, I've called you into this meeting today because you haven't been performing up to the standards of our company. And we went through your internet history and we recognize you've been looking at cat videos way too often and have not met your quotas. Therefore, we're terminating.
That will be the end of me. Oh, yes. Man, I love that.
All right, everyone. Now that was a really funny video, but it really showcases some of the issues that an employer can have and really open themselves up to liability and lawsuits. I mean, right there, Human Resources is saying, we don't have any policy, it's not a big deal. Big problem, that's a huge problem. You're opening yourself up to liability. So anyways, as your chief legal counsel, I manage a team of lawyers who oversee all the laws and legal issues raised with social media and internet misuse on a state, federal, and international level for macro-hard computers. Subsequently, we assist the Human Resources VP on all levels compile the disciplinary actions to be compliant with the laws, as well as the monitoring systems for such. And even though social media and internet have been out and combined, their age combined is a couple decades old, there's many laws that sprout up frequently about employee misuse. So anyways, it's important to understand some general guidelines to social media and internet use and what is or isn't permissible and what is or isn't recommended in order to abide by the laws and avoid lawsuits. We work tirelessly with the Human Resources VP so that they understand these connections to employer policies. A couple things about the legal issues. We're an international company, so there's many laws that we could go over. So we're just going to go over guidelines right here because there's just way too many laws to cover on an international basis. So it is within the employer's legal right to lawfully restrict internet access. Complete restrictions not recommended. It can cause employee discontent. We can also block certain websites. So I think a couple of our members brought that up as well. And Human Resources must ensure employees are aware of the policies. So it's really important to have really great policy in place. They need to be aware of that policy verbally prior to providing that policy in writing. And then those employees must sign that policy as well. So they're completely aware of the guidelines. A lot of lawsuits are because of the fact that employees think they have some inherent right to privacy. They've been told, oh, you're not going to be monitored, don't worry about that. And then employers subsequently, just like our video showcased here, monitors, finds out employees misusing the internet, and then terminates them. And they say, wait a minute, you said I wasn't going to be monitored. So that's where a lot of the lawsuits sprout up from. So anyways, although another option here is monitoring systems, and I believe Joe and Ryan brought that up as well, employers cannot by law access employees' social media accounts. So even though you're monitoring and you're getting that information, you can't use that information, nor can you gain access to it. In some nations, the laws are a little bit different, but in order to maintain compliance on a high level, we're just going to make sure we don't get into that at all. And that's when you open your firm up to invasion of privacy lawsuits and whatnot. So furthermore, employers can ensure the use of appropriate social networking by employees both at work and outside of work by doing the following. However, as I mentioned, each nation's laws vary greatly, and so I recommend this on an across-the-board perspective, as some nations' laws are more lenient than others. So if you do want to monitor or restrict or forbid the use of social networking, you have to be very cautious because all employees have an inherent right to privacy, even at the workplace during working time. So you need to make sure, once again, that those policies reflect internet misuse. Employers may limit the use of social networks by requiring employees do not disclose confidential information or trade secrets. We can implement this, once again, in an employee handbook and a duty of confidentiality, etc. We can adopt a social media policy to encourage appropriate use of social networking. Use that policy to prohibit employees from using social media in ways that could damage the company. So once again, sharing trade secrets, defamation, things like that. Provide training, weekly training, so that they're completely aware on a weekly basis of what that policy is on social media use, internet use, and misuse of it. We can not allow employees to disclose or misuse confidential proprietary information. Set clear guidelines, once again, we already mentioned that. And a couple things about what we can do lawfully. So it's lawful to restrain the type of use or prohibit access to specific website names by like Facebook or keywords like pornography. So we can do that. It's lawful to prohibit certain employee actions with regard to network security. So, example, downloading music, going shopping, things like that. So certain downloading options. And then before implementation of restrictions, employees must be notified. So whether that be verbally, that's the most important, then written. Of course, that is also with monitoring systems as well. Restrictions of social media use are usually contained in an employee handbook, codes of conduct, and there should be progressive disciplinary action if an employee does misuse the internet. So for example, employee uses internet X amount of hours, we should progress them into a disciplinary action and subsequent termination. And then we should regularly audit the internet use and intermittently have pop-ups. Anyways, overall, we're looking at an enormous scale of laws and guidelines to abide by with social media and internet use. It's important to abide by these so we avoid lawsuits. And those lawsuits can cost anywhere to $10,000 to $200,000. And in the last 5 years, without these policies or monitoring systems in place, we've had 8 to 12 lawsuits per year, which is extremely costly. That doesn't even include my fees. So anyways, when you do implement your new policies or your procedures monitoring system, make sure you discuss that with me so that they are in the guidelines with the laws. So thank you so much.
Outstanding, Chris. Very, very informative. Ryan, did you have any questions at this point?
How much of these recordings that we will be gathering from our programs, how long are we allowed to keep them, and should we choose to keep them for any duration? How may we use them to prove that employees have been productive or not productive?
Well, you'll have to go back to Human Resources and the VP of Customer Service Relations and figure out your quotas as far as that's concerned. But as far as the legality and how long you should keep them, that's really up to your discretion. There is no legal or laws, rather, as how long you can keep it. We do recommend that once you no longer need it, that you should delete it. If an employee is not misusing, it's really no need to keep that information on hand anymore.
Joe?
So I was just thinking about the fees and everything. So from my side, implementing the policies, privacy and such. So we were looking, settlements beforehand. How much do you think we could start generating, as a win-win situation for us? As in, less settlements. How much money do you think we'll be saving by reducing the amount of settlements and introducing the correct policy?
You're looking at millions of dollars at this point. I mean, you don't have any policies right now, so you've opened basically this firm is free game at this point as far as lawsuits. So when you do fire employees and they think, well, you didn't have a policy set in place, you didn't tell me that. So, I mean, right now we're looking at millions of dollars.
And it looks like we were right off that money when we introduced the new policy.
Outrageous amounts of money there. I'm just disappointed that I can't use the software to log into Joe's Facebook account and post some videos of cats.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't do that. That is against the law.
Okay. In the aspect of time, I want to progress forward here. So I'm going to cut off the questions at this point and kind of just jump right into my perspective of things. And Ryan, if you could make sure that all of our board members and investors have a copy of